call this meeting to order, March 4th, 2014. Mr. White, would you start us off today with a prayer and order?
Dear God, we want to thank you, God, for this day. God, we thank you for the many blessings of life, God, that you give each and every one of us. We thank you, God, for the school system. And God, we just pray, God, a hedge of protection around us. God, we just want to pray, God, for each and every one of our staff members, each and every one of our students. God, that you just be with them, lead them, and guide them. God, we want to just pray, God, as you give us the wisdom, God, that we need to take this meeting today, God, to make the decisions, God, that need to be made to better our students and our county. God, we do love you, we do thank you, we do praise you, God, for all that you do. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Ms. Gradle, I'll turn it over to you and your group.
Sure. Real quick, with us today, we have Robbinsville High School's newest state champions. My far left, you have Mr. Irvin Portugal, state champion at 106 pounds. And then we have Mr. Zach Orr, who was a two-time state champion at 106 pounds, and then this year at 120 pounds. So this morning, after the pledge, I'll talk a little bit about it. It won't be too much out of it, but catch your liberty, I'll start the pledge for us.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to stand. It's been my honor and privilege to coach here at this high school for the last 12 years, and over that span of time, I've been real fortunate to have a lot of great kids, but undoubtedly, this group of seniors that I had this year are the most winningest group to ever come through Robbinsville High School. As a group of seniors, every time they stepped on a mat this year, 82% of the time they got their hand raised, which is insane to think of. No matter where we were at, the competition that we had, 83% of the time they get their hand raised. But the unique thing about this year's group is we sent 7 kids to the state tournament. 6 of them placed, and one was underclassman, Creed Lovin. He placed 4th in the state, lost in the ultimate tiebreaker overtime. We had Nathan Craig placed 3rd. We had Brandon Lee placed 3rd. We had Kay Guffey placed 2nd. These 2 guys won the state title. With that, on a side note, after the tournament, they voted on the most outstanding wrestler for the classification, and luckily enough, Mr. Orr here was voted the state tournament's most outstanding wrestler for the 1A classification, which has only happened one other time in our school's history, which was Mr. James Orr. So, pretty unique honor for him as well. The other thing I want to mention is that, you know, we talk about our kids, and we try to emphasize them doing the right things and that kind of thing. Mr. Irvin over here, his career record is 109-29. He's in the top 10 all time as far as our school is concerned. But the little known fact is 2 things. The first thing is that, you know, we ask our kids to go above and beyond and be better people. And 4 years ago, Irvin wasn't a starter. He's not been a starter for the last 5 years. He's always had to wrestle up. He's always had to wrestle behind, because as a freshman, we had the #1 ranked wrestler in the state with Cody Sosby, and then we had Zach, and then we had Irvin. So he was 3 deep, and Irvin, as a 7th grader, had to wrestle behind those guys. As an 8th grader, he had to wrestle behind those guys. As a freshman, he had to wrestle behind those guys. And until this year, all the way up until the state tournament, I always wrestled him up at 113 pounds. And he finally got to go down to 106 pounds and compete at his natural weight. I say all that to say this. As a freshman, we were in the duels, and Zach Orr came to me and said, I want Irvin Portugal to have a win on his record. I want him to wrestle for me. And Zach, on his own accord, took himself out of the lineup. Now, 4 years ago, that wasn't a big deal. But if you fast forward 4 years, this year, the second kind of act of unselfishness, Zach wanted his brother to be able to qualify for the state tournament. He and his brother didn't have a real good shot at 120. And so Zach wrestled up, put his state title on the line to wrestle up at 120 pounds. So his brother would have a shot at qualifying for the state tournament. He was up 6-1, got caught in cradle, didn't qualify. But I say all that to say this, Zach Orr is now the all-time wins leader at Rossville High School. His career record is 155 and 19, but he is tied with Cade Guffey, who's 155 and 45. If he would have been selfish, he would have been the all-time wins leader in Robbinsville wrestling history. But because he loved this guy sitting beside him, it made a difference in his career, kept him around. Now we got 2 state champions to celebrate. And so, that's the kind of kids that we're trying to produce. That don't always happen, but we sure strive for that, and we try to pursue that. And, a lot of these kids that are graduating this year are going to go on and do some pretty incredible things. But, undoubtedly, this bunch seals 10 years of winning the conference title. They've won the conference tournament 9 years in a row. And, these guys have just went above and beyond on the mat. But, those little things off the mat that nobody ever sees and nobody ever knows about is what means the most to me. So I appreciate y'all giving us the time to showcase these guys and let them be a part of y'all's meetings. I will say that. Probably not.
Boys, we appreciate what you do, and I remember this time last year, we kind of put that challenge out there to you, and apparently you guys lived up to it, so, I hate I wasn't there to see it. I think we might have been doing some round ball that day, but, you sure did make everybody proud. Why don't you guys tell us, what your goals are? You both seniors, are you a senior too, Zach? So what do you guys plan to do once you leave us here?
Go to college. Wrestling.
I was looking into that, where you wanna go or anything yet, or you got people begging you yet?
He's got 2 colleges that are pretty serious about it. One's Belmont Ag, and the other
Oh,
one's
okay, good.
is Truett McConnell, which is down in Georgia.
Oh, okay, good.
So, the fear and the anxiety of most kids and really what detracts a lot of kids from going to college is they all think that they have to be Division I athletes. But in our sport and in any other sport, for us, I would rather Zach go to a smaller college, be able to compete immediately
Right.
versus going to Appalachian and have to ride the pine for 2 or 3 years. Those kids, like Weston Haney that broke into the lineup a couple of times in 4 years, those are few and far between. So, at Belmont and also at Truett McConnell, he would be able to get into the lineup almost immediately. That really.
And the good point of that too, at the same time, get a good education.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To go with it, so, that's always a positive too, so I feel like whatever you decide to do, you're gonna do it, so. Irvin, what about you?
I don't know, I like sports, and I like to be a PE teacher.
Oh, that sounds good. All right, good. So you're looking at going on somewhere too.
Urban and I have formulated a plan to get him in and through college, so.
That sounds great.
We're working on that actually today. So,
All right, good.
So we're looking at that, but, these guys have represented us extremely well.
Right, did a great job.
We're going to miss it.
Absolutely.
It gets tougher and tougher. Each time we lose a group of kids.
Well, we appreciate you. It's what you did for us.
Very good. We're going to split. I'm going to go by Sometimes I put that out there and it costs me. For everybody that don't know, before I left the Board of Education, there was about 15 or 20 kids in here, and I said, just run by Bojangles, so we'll get you breakfast, I'll pay for it. And I was joking. Well, they did. And they charged it to me. Just so y'all know. All right, thank y'all very much.
We appreciate y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Good job, guys.
Next step on our agenda is approval of minutes from the February 4th meeting. We have a motion to approve these minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, take a look at the day's agenda, and I think we have a amendment to it, so.
Just
it's
a
not-
minor amendment to add an additional trip onto Mr. White's presentation. That's that one, sorry.
From me.
Under Mr. White's.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve today's agenda with the amendment included?
I make a motion that we approve today's agenda with the amendment for the additional trip.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? This time, do we have any individuals or groups to address the board today?
No.
The meeting is now open for any public comment. We have anybody that has anything to say today? All right. We'll start with our updates from our directors and principals. Mr. Masson, you want to go first?
Okay, today's a big day at the high school. We're administering the ACT to all the junior class, so that's going on down the hall. We got the bells off. The rest of the high school are in the auditorium enjoying the movie today. That's pretty much all we can do with them, with that test going on. So we'll be back to regular schedule after lunch, hopefully today, but they'll be finished up. I'd like to just say again, how proud I am of those wrestlers that were here and the other ones that got to go to the state tournament. They had a great year and did win the conference for the 10th straight time. Also, Coach Odom, I thought he might talk about this a little bit, but I'm going to talk about it some because y'all need to be aware of it if you're not. Coach Odom wrote an article for the Grand Star and had 7 pictures, 1 picture of each kid that was supposed to go into the state tournament. And he went to the Grand Star to have them put it in there, and they refused to put it in. And so they forced him to buy half a page from the Grand Star to put in. And of course, he used wrestling funds to do that. Even then, he told them, that if he was going to put it in there, he wanted it put in there just like he had written it. He wanted a picture of all the kids. They come back and said, well, we can't get it all in there. We'll reduce the font. So they did that, then they called them, they had it all, and then it came out, and it was not all in there. 2 pictures, a picture of Brandon Lee and a picture of Bobby Drew had been left out. And, just as the principal of the high school, it disgusts me that our local paper doesn't care enough to cover our kids the way they need to be covered. And it's not just wrestling, it's all of our, not just athletics, but, we had science night last week over at the high school for the elementary, and when I asked Ms. Knight about that, she said they'd stopped counting 700 people coming through there. Lots of great things going on in our school system throughout, K through 12, and I think the paper needs to do a little bit better job. And the fact that they would charge to put those kids in there with the accomplishments they had, I find that pretty disgusting myself, so.
It was $360, by the way.
Yeah,
So it was paid for and they still didn't do it.
they still did not get all the pictures in there, that's correct. Boys basketball had a phenomenal season, finished up Friday night, we got beat up at Avery County in the sectional finals, finished the season 24-5. It's the best season that we've had as far as records since 1973, 74, somewhere in that area. Called Mark Manuel yesterday some, and he was on a team that went down to what they call the state tournament at that time. And I actually, after talking to him, he made me aware that this team's accomplishment really was even as good as theirs. We, for the first time, at least, I don't know about the 72, 73 team, but at least since then, for the first time, the boys basketball team won the conference regular season and the conference tournament. So they had a great season. Out of 8 players on the team, they've got 7 coming back. So they should be really good again next year. And our JV girls also won the regular season conference title and the tournament. So we had a good season. Our winter sports just had a phenomenal year all the way around. Varsity girls had a real good season. JV boys had a good season. Everybody in the top half of the conference. And varsity girls, of course, made the second round of the playoffs. We just had a good winter sports season. Alex Norris, I think I mentioned him placing at the last board meeting. He'll be going to, band, he was all district, and he'll be going to the state competition this month. Mr. Stout will be taking him down for that. We have sent progress reports out one time this 9 weeks so far, and we scheduled parent-teacher conferences for March the 11th from 3:30 to 6, so that's coming up next week. And here we go and talk about the junior trip. Is that fine? And Ms. Knight, I do ask that y'all approve our junior trip. It's scheduled for March the 26th through the 31st. We'll be leaving on Wednesday night, drive all night, then spend that first day in Washington, spend Thursday night in Washington, and then an all-day Friday, and then leave there and drive on to New York City. Be staying 3 nights up in New Jersey and going around Manhattan and driving back on Monday the 31st. So all the kids pretty much have paid up, and got a couple still just like the small payments, but looking forward to that. I will be going on that trip, and Ms. Walsh will be going also this year. So we've got a good group of chaperones going, and we'll make sure the office is taken care of. But it's a great trip, and we're looking forward to it.
Sounds good. Probably would have been good if they took the board then, wouldn't it?
Next year, let's make some sense. I'll need to go with you.
Is, as far as the paper thing, I've kind of been disappointed in that too. Is there anything as a board that we could do that you would like us to do?
I think maybe if y'all would write a letter on behalf of the board just requesting that they cover more school activities and do a better job covering school activities, it might help. I know that we've had a parent, Jenna Cole, has been going around with a petition. I think she has she's getting close to 500 signatures now. So to try to get the paper to cover more, school activities. And her thing was, her daughter plays basketball. And I think she has one in the middle school maybe that it's just not getting in there. And she'd like to see more of that stuff. And I'll be honest with you, they should just cover that. They should cover the GCYAA and everything. I mean, people buy papers. If there are kids' pictures in it or their names in there and stuff like that, they'll buy papers for that. So, but according to Mr. Budd, only 14% of people look at the sports page, so. That's the stat that he gave Ms. Cole. Yeah, I'd like to know too. And it's not, like I said, it's not about whether you like sports or not, it's about our kids.
The kids, right?
Getting that exposure, being covered, so. If the board would like to write a letter, I would appreciate that.
And I agree, there are a lot of really good things that go on in our school, and people need to know about it. And a lot of people that don't have children, I know I met with a women's club last year about things going on in the school, and they were very interested, and none of them had children in the school and wanted to hear more of what was going on. So there are people that don't have school children that want to know or like what goes on. And I've said for years, our school is the center of this community and what people are focused on. So
If you look at the things that Ms. Knight especially has done with our fall festival, organizing those things, the science night, it's bringing in, it's not just for kids. It brings in a lot of people into our schools.
And a lot of our community and business partners join with us for these events, and it's good exposure for the whole community.
we'll take a look at doing a letter from the board. Yes.
I would just like to offer, I'm not as big as the paper, and I'm sure I don't have as much readership as the paper, but I also want to offer that I would be glad. I mean, that's what the Graham editorial is about also, and since I'm covering the school board, if you would like, the less work I have to do, of course, would be appreciated. I mean, if you want to just send me an article, pictures, and if it's easy and copy and paste it, I would be glad to put it on my website. I mean, I know I get the county, commissioners watching it and a lot of people, so I mean, I'd be willing to do that free. I don't charge for that. I mean, I'm disseminating information into the community that's important, so you can use me as a resource.
Thank you. Mr. Long.
I don't have anything to report other than the video sheet, which I did. We have a dinner kid coming up this week on Thursday, It's where they come and take photos. And all the kids with their birthdays, kind of an ID card that's used for safety. We do that every other year or so. We also have spring pictures coming up next Friday. I'd like to say too, the science fair I thought went really well. The high school, I believe Ms. Caldwell, who was sick, organized the biggest part of that. I know a lot of other people did too, but my grandson, he really enjoyed it. All the booths they had set up, I was surprised. The kids wanted to do every one of them, and go back and do it again, eat bugs, and all kinds of stuff.
I had
There was a lot of people
for
there.
closed sessions.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there. It was a good thing, I mean, a good thing. But I'll get to that here in a few minutes.
It's hard to think about spring pictures, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's like
Sleeping
outside.
outside, yeah. Mr. White?
Things are going well at the middle school, actually kind of quiet right now, you know, everybody, education going on right now, but I do have a few dates for you. On Wednesday, March the 19th, our Battle Books Club, we'll be traveling to Asheville, to compete with other middle schools in the area, you know, with their competition. Also on March the 13th, this is something I'm interested in. Actually, I'm going to miss it because I'm going to be at a conference, but Duke Power National Theater is coming in to do a presentation to our kids, like a theatrical performance, you know, about conserving energy, and it sounds really neat. And so that'll be at 2:20 on March the 13th. Anybody's interested, you know, to watch that. Our Peace Gym Club, they have worked really hard. Actually, the intention was to visit the nursing home on Valentine's Day. You know, they worked real hard to gathering up bears and stuff, and they were going to visit, you know, the nursing home. Due to all the weather and stuff that we had during that time, they put that off, and they're going to be going on March the 12th to visit the nursing home. So, also on March the 21st, Western Carolina University, they offer a conference for middle school students that are interested in becoming teachers. And so I'm going to be taking, I think about 14 students. I had a meeting the other day, and 14 students said they were interested in becoming teachers. So we're going to take those 14 students to Western Carolina on the 21st for that conference. So, spring sports have now started up. Believe it or not, baseball out there freezing today, softball out there freezing that track as well. But baseball and softball, they have their first game this Friday here at home versus Hiawassee Dam, and track. Their first track meet will be next Monday at Hayesville. All that's getting started. Also, with our coach trip, we are currently doing our last fundraiser right now, so we're just about to get shit out of this thing paid for very quickly. And we're looking forward to that. You want me to go ahead and talk about our trips now, or? Well, to be honest with you, I forgot that we were going to do this today. So, but on May the 9th through the 15th, somewhere there, those dates.
I thought specifically.
And hopefully you guys have your packed anyway. But we are going to be, you know, of course, going on our coach trip that we've taken for quite some time. You know, Mr. Moody started this, or I'm assuming Mr. Moody started this, you know, we've probably done this at least 10, 12 years. And it's a good experience with the kids. A lot of the kids, I remember last year when I went with them, I was amazed at how many kids that never saw an ocean before. You know, and all the things that they're doing in their 8th grade social studies classroom, you know, we visit a lot of those places that they're talking about. So it's a great experience for the kids. And also, sometime in April.
April 15th through the 18th.
April 15th through the 18th. Ms. Dixon with the Project Discovery has requested that they be able to take that trip again. But they do a lot of team building exercises and things like that. It's, you know, with the Project Discovery group, a lot of it is intended towards students that would be first generation go to college. And of course, you know, not all, we also have others built in there as well, but they will be taking the trip on that day that we're asking you to approve.
Where will they be going?
We go over to Tennessee.
I put it right here. Sorry, he submitted it to me. They will be at the Hiawassee Coe Scenic River State Park in Delano, Tennessee. And this is a trip that they take yearly.
Yes, we.
It's an overnight trip. And Dennis Crisp will be accompanying
They do rappelling,
They
and
do.
plunging, and zip lines, all kinds of stuff.
With federal programs and EC, we've had a lot going on. At the elementary last week, we had Rock and Read. The theme was The Wizard of Oz, and every student at the elementary was able to attend. They were able to choose a book of their choice, and we had people that were there to read to some of our smaller ones. We're hoping to increase that number next year, especially with our smaller groups as they come through, to make sure that they're in smaller groups to have people to read with them, but they got to pick a book of their choice. We ended Rock and Read with Science Night, which turned out great. As Mr. Matheson said, we had a really good turnout. And we sort of made it like the culmination of a curriculum night. Middle school, well, elementary science, middle school science, and high school science were all represented there, showing off things that they did within their curriculum. And our data tells us on MClass and MAPS, and even on up into Mr. Black's data, that our kids struggle with informational text or nonfiction more than they struggle with fiction text. So we handed every kid that came through the door a science type book on their level. So that was a nonfiction text that was on their level that they got to choose. So hopefully they'll have that at home, and it will start getting our kids more exposed to nonfictional text as a part of this as well. We sent our 3 beginning teachers to the Beginning Teacher Mid-Year Symposium in Western Carolina last week. Our pre-K applications for next year are now open, and we have a date set for Special Olympics. It's May the 9th at Macon Middle School, and opening ceremony starts at 9:45. And if that date, if the weather should not cooperate, and at this point in life, it would be safe to assume that there's a high potential that the weather might not cooperate. Monday, May the 12th is the rain date, so, thank you.
Hey, Mr. Smith, do you have anything besides the personnel thing?
A few things. I thought science night did go well, although my direct supervisor made me eat a cricket.
I thought we need to take one for the team. They're all part
There
of
may be
it.
some legal action. So.
He's still here, so they are.
It's pretty rough. Personnel, this night will be bringing to you a recommendation for a middle school math teacher and also for a substitute teacher and a volunteer. So she'll bring that to you. Testing, we actually got a little good news for a change. We were chosen to give 2 field tests, and they were really turned into monsters. The state basically made the local LEAs just do all the work. And the state then decided that the tests that were being field tested, they probably won't even adopt now. So there was enough pressure put on the state with the local LEAs, plus it snowed in Raleigh, that they canceled both the field tests. So I mean, it was looking like a lot of work on the kids and teachers to do this. So that's fine, we'll do good news. Today, like Mr. Matheson said, the ACT's been given to high school, and that is a massive undertaking on high school. I don't even know how they even function on a day like this, but it is a lot of work on them to do. The Extend 1 kids, they also have to take an ACT test. It's very different, but that will be given to them sometime later during the week. The access test for our ESL students, and we now have 19 ESL students. We have a new student from Honduras in the high school. And the high school is doing a really good job with her because we don't have a lot of resources, but they're taking really good care of her. Come in speaking no English whatsoever. But they're doing a good job, and she's coming along. But those 19 kids will have to be tested with the access test. That's due this month. Amber Davis is back with us now after maternity leave, and she's actually in my office right now. We're going to do all the access materials, so she will give them those tests. We got an extension on that, which we really need because again, it snowed in Raleigh. So that every time it snows in Raleigh, it actually helps us out quite a bit. Technology, something we need to be thinking about for the future. I think we're pretty blessed with computers right now, computer labs, computer cards, iPad cards, but, and they're all fairly new, but computers get old so fast. And I'm afraid 2 or 3 years down the road that we're gonna have a situation where we have a lot of computers getting old and they're just not working. And the state doesn't provide hardly any resources in technology. So that's just something I'm trying to plan on a little bit, but it's kind of a storm that's coming. I'm sure it's that way in a lot of school systems, but just something kind of keeping the back of our minds that we're probably gonna have to replace a lot of computers before too long. Next week, we will host probably the last Teaching Fellows visit. They'll spend 3 days with us, and we have just 2 students this year, Mandy Hooper and Summer Heather, so they're local students. And of course, Teaching Fellows is going away after this year, which was a great program, but it's something the state decided to cut. But we're pleased to have those 2 students with us next week.
Are they seniors this year?
I guess they're juniors, so next year, I guess, will be the actual last year. And then it's phasing out, so I suppose their group then is the last group to get the Teaching Fellowship. And I'm glad the state at least honored that they kept those kids in the program. But it was a really good program. That's all I've got.
I have something further down the line.
I didn't get anything extra or not. All right, Mr. Green.
In your packet, you have just 2 pages of budget amendments. The first page are budget amendments to the state public school fund, and then the second page are budget amendments for the federal fund. And I'm only going to go over one on the first page. Most of those are rather small. But the second one on page 1 is a budget amendment to PRC 14. We've received funds within PRC 14. $23,806. We plan to use those funds to purchase computers. This budget amendment is a continuation of an ABC transfer that I presented last school board meeting, where we were moving months of employment out of PRC 13 into PRC 14. Both of those PRCs are the Career and Technical Education Program. Each year we have a few months of employment that's allotted from the state that we can transfer into PRC 14. We have more leeway within that PRC. So we can use those months of employment, we can use dollars for items such as computers, supplies and materials, workshop expense. And Ms. Anderson has chosen to use that transfer, those dollars, for purchase of computers. So that's all I have as far as budget amendments. You will notice that in your folder you do not have expenditure reports. All of the funds other than child nutrition, I always speak about the variances. The variances within all the funds except for child nutrition are in line. I'll present those expenditure reports at the next board meeting, but we do have an inventory balance that we need to take, that we need to correct in child nutrition that'll allow those expenditure reports to be correct.
I'll just tell them what else to do with it, Mr. Green.
We do this issue, and I need your help. If you're out in the community or in your neighborhood, if you would please keep your eyes and ears and your nose on alert, because missing from our inventory is $100,000 worth of pinto beans. We really don't have any beans missing.
Sorry, Miss Moody, we just get
When we,
Her face got
at the central office, at the individual school secretaries, your directors at each cafeteria, we key in a lot of data. And every now and then, you're going to key in, you're going to make a keystroke error. So at the end of the month, instead of having 7.16 cases of pinto beans, we have 7,016 cases of pinto beans. So that error will be corrected shortly, and what we'll do is we'll present those expenditure reports at the next school board meeting. Who says you can't have fun with finance and accounting?
That's right.
So can that many of these are. Mr. Lauer, is the Read to Achieve assessment.
I'll give you a few more things to add to the packet in this, tonight I've already given you. Just give one of
I
these.
think you come out here back to the
Yeah.
essential.
Okay. And basically what I'm giving you now is what the state board has approved, and also some examples of how when you use MAP, how the kids are scored, what we look at, and also the things that MAP recommends to you that they may be, struggling in. So that's kind of the reports we get back from this program. But like Mr. Smith said, this is one other thing that's some good news coming out of the state. They have approved 8 different alternative assessments for schools to use in relation to the Read to Achieve legislation. And you can choose any one of those 8. And what we've done is we looked at one we already have. We had it in place before the Excellent Schools Act of 2012. It's called MAP. Measurement of academic achievement, I can't remember that, performance. But we plan on using that program, which is one of the programs, one of the assessments that the state says. I wrote a bunch of notes, but I can't ever keep up with the state, so I try to copy it. In 11-12, I think, myself, help me if you remember, we decided that we were looking for a universal assessor in math, reading, science, even social studies. This one doesn't cover social studies, but MAP is something we adopted for grades 3-6, way back before all this came out. And it's something we think is very effective, something that we think measures, especially reading proficiency in each of those grades. So this is something that the state now says is a good indicator of reading proficiency, a reliable, valid assessment to use to determine if a 3rd grader is proficient in reading. We were already doing it. Then they come along and said, you can't use that with 3rd grade. You got to use MCLASS, which is another assessment program that we do 3 times a year. We do MAPS 3 times a year. We do MCLASS 3 times a year. For 3rd grade, was not allowed to do that because the state decided K3 will do MCLASS. So we had already purchased the use of MAP. So we didn't use it on 3rd grade. Now they're saying this would be a good indicator of reading proficiency in 3rd grade. And what's the strange thing about this? The people that create MCLASS, people that make that program, or produce that program, they will not say, and that's why the state won't approve MCLASS now as a.
Even though that's what they forced us to
Right.
use.
They forced us to buy MCLASS for K3 to use, to help kids throughout the year as they see that there's problems in reading. But now they say it's not one of the approved alternative assessments for reading in 3rd grade because MCLASS will not say that, they said MCLASS was never designed to be I forget the words they used, a universal assessor to declare proficiency in reading based on Common Core. But the state's already bought it, we're having to use it. Now they're saying it's not, don't tell whether the proficiency.
Pearson, I
Yeah, I don't know if Pearson's in on that.
Somewhere MAPS, they don't have a lobbyist, the best I can do, because it is a good program.
Pearson probably doesn't know it, but they push it.
But like I say, with MAP, we were very disappointed 3rd grade couldn't use it. But now we have access to it for 3rd grade. We've already purchased it. On one of those 8 things, MAP is one of the approved by the state board alternative assessments. The way we can use that is, right now there's 5 or 6 ways that you can prove proficiency in reading in the 3rd grade. According to the Read to Achieve law, basically 3rd graders have to be proficient in reading or they fail. And there's a number of different steps you have to go through.
Which have changed since the law was
Oh, yeah.
established.
For example, third grade right now takes a pre-test on the EOG. They score a certain mark, then they're considered proficient in reading, regardless of what happens the rest of the year. They're still considered proficient in reading.
Now, they still have to take the EOG.
They go through all the steps still. The next mark is the EOG, the regular EOG. If they make it to Vera 4, of course, they're proficient in reading then. If they do not, they take the Read to Achieve test, which is a little bit easier test, we're thinking, as the regular EOG. So instead of a retest on the EOG, they take the Read to Achieve. Or they can do a retest on the EOG. So that's another place they can go. There's also a good cause exemption. If you extend 1 or extend 2, then you're exempt from this requirement. Extend 2 ends after this year, so that'll be.
It's something new unfolds every week.
Yeah, well, they first just said only extend 1. Extend 2 had to go through everything. Now they've changed it. If they fail that Read to Achieve, if they fail the EOG, they fail Read to Achieve, then the parent has to decide if they go to summer school. They say they're not going, and they fail the third grade. If they go to summer school, then they, at the end of summer school, they will be retested again on Read to Achieve. If they fail that, they will be placed in the 4th grade as a 3rd grader, and they will have to either pass the Read to Achieve test or have a completed portfolio. Now, the portfolio part is what this is going to really help with. Portfolio part involves, the biggest part of it involves, they have to pass 36 passages that were supposed to be based on 3rd grade reading level. Well, there was a few school systems took those passages to a person that shows how they're leveled and what grades they're on, and that's the 7th grade reading level. But they have to complete 36 passages, 3 on each of the 12 different standards, and they didn't tell us this till November, what the standards were. So if they fail any one of them, less than 70%, they're not going to have time by the end of the year to complete all of it. We thought portfolio, when it first came out, was a good thing, and I guess it is, because a lot of kids don't test well. So we thought, we're going to do a portfolio on all students. So if they just don't test well, and they can get grades, there's a lot of kids like that, you know, don't test well, they can get grades, work hard. We thought, this is something that they can fall back on. It wouldn't be right to only to have kids that are at risk to have a portfolio. So we're doing them all, so they can fall back on it. But with this new alternative assessment portfolio, you know, we will continue to do that because it's good practice for the EOG. Because they do have to read through these passages or whatever. But if we can use MAP, we can test them 3 times if we need to, at different times that the test window's open throughout the year, which we already did with grades 4 or 6. And at any point, if they score a 197, then all this other's out the window. They still have to take the EOG, but if they fail it, they've already got a proven document that they're proficient in reading. And what the state, like I said, the state approved 8 of these things. MAP is one of them. I talked to 2 or 3 schools, and you know, of those schools, the ones I talked to used MAP because we're familiar with it. And they feel like that's really, you know, an advantage to our kids. It's another opportunity for them to show that they are proficient in reading, if they are, you know, they do struggle on different areas. With MAP, like on the paper I gave you, it looks like this. Each time they're tested, it shows you if they've got a red score up in the top right-hand corner, it shows you a range on what they call the red score. The red score has to be 197. It shows you their score each time they're tested, and it shows you what they need to work on before they're tested again. It gives you specific standards, objectives, and it's very, research-based. It's a very good program. That's why we purchased it initially, not because the state said we had it. There's still, a lot of people in the state don't know what MAP is until now. They've approved it. But before they will allow us to do this, all local boards of education have to agree that MAP, and there's a lot of information on the pamphlet that Ms. Knight gave you about what MAP does, what it scores and how it determines that score. But anyhow, the state board said that every local board of education has to approve this as an alternative assessment and agree that it is a valid, reliable assessment for reading comprehension, third grade. So that's what's before you. We had to submit a letter to Ms. Knight to ask her to consider that, and she was in agreement with us, and then she's basically presenting this to y'all for your consideration. But we need to do that as soon as we can, because the test window for MAP is right now. We can test them right now, and some third graders can already show, they're proficient in reading by taking this test. It's a 40-minute test online, and we get immediate results. We don't have to wait around all these scores. So that's, and I know I went through that very fast, kind of jumped around here and there. But if you've got any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them. Right now, the biggest problem we're having with a lot of the problem with third grade is that's the only grade in K-12 that has to do M-class assessments and the EOG. No other grade has to do with EOG or EOC with also another 3 times a year assessment. Along with that, the portfolio, which takes a considerable amount of time. Just think about 36 passages between November and June, not counting all the other subjects you're supposed to do. But just for reading, just to prepare them when you feel like they're ready to take this test, and if they don't pass it, you keep testing them 3 times a week. So you got to get them ready. You hope they're ready. And then if they fail, less than 70 on average, they may not complete 3 of 12 passages by the end of the year. This will give us another alternative for them to try to make that mark.
It's my understanding from talking with other superintendents that almost each LEA in the state will be asking additional assessments.
Yeah, and on the letter that Ms. Knight's, the reason this come about is there's so many complaints about the portfolio. And that's why it come about. The letter she gave you looks something like this. The part where it says concerns, those concerns I've read on a number of different recommendations to the boards of education are in agreement. Time's a big factor. The readability of the passages. It's 7th grade level on things they checked on a number of different passages. You're testing 3rd graders for 7th grade level. And they, people have already requested that the state reduce the requirement instead of 3, complete 3 passages per standard, reduce it to 1, which would help considerably. Even though it's not at the right level, it still helps. It's a lot less time. Right now, we're killing 3rd grade by not allowing them time to teach. And that's the biggest things going on. At least this will take some of those kids out of the equation where they don't have to have that complete portfolio in order to be considered proficient in reading.
I've got a couple of questions. You said it was an online test?
It is.
Are our kids ready to do that in the 3rd grade?
Well, we've, the 3rd grade's not done anything online other than they use an iPad to assess them. It's not actually a kid punching on a computer, but they don't have experience online. You're right. 4th grade is where all that starts. 3rd's where we wanted to start it. It doesn't allow us to do that. I mean, we could have, but we didn't. They wouldn't count it, is what I'm saying. We feel like with all the programs we use that are online, the kids get on the computer and answer questions in the classroom and in labs. We feel like, that they're comfortable enough with the computer to do that. So my answer would be, they don't have experience in it, but we do feel like they're comfortable with using the computer to take the test like they do on other programs too.
And my other question is, in light of all the big controversy that's gone with readability, and I had read where it was 7th grade to 9th grade passages, is this MAP more in line with a 3rd grade readability level?
according to the research I've read and that you've got in there too, it's a direct correlation to third grade proficiency in reading, the equivalent of a score of 3. 197 is the equivalent of 3, and then you go up from there. So that was a big selling point to us too. The main reason we went with MAP in the first place for the upper grades was it based on, I think we contacted and us up to what, 3 or 4 different systems, school systems. They were high on it because it was the best indicator they could find by April to show kind of what it looked like the kid would make on an EOG. So it's directly in line with EOG standards, Common Core. M-class claims, they're not in line with Common Core. So in other states,
I read this morning that MAP is correlated to the North Carolina Common Core standards for third grade.
Right.
So,
And I don't know what student form that he handed to you. There's several different ones. They all look a little bit different, but on some of the student forms, it shows how the student performed on the test compared to the district norm. So that would tell you in our case, well, little Johnny scored here at Robbinsville Elementary School in third grade. Your average kid scored here, so it compares him to the district. But then if you'll notice too on there, there's also that national bar, if that's the report that you have, and it maps. It also shows how our kids are comparing to the national standard for third grade, which is of course what they wanted to achieve with Common Core, is for it to be national type standards. So you do have those 3 things on there. And what this is doing, Read to Achieve Law has really been hard for third grade kids. I mean, they don't have anything to do with the law, but they live the reality of it. And what this MAPS assessment would do is to give that child a chance to show that they're proficient and get out of some of the loopholes of this law and just give this baby another chance to show, I can read on third grade. I shouldn't have to jump through all of the legal loopholes that go along with the Read to Achieve law.
Anybody else have a question for Mr. Lawler? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And just kind of a side note on that, the portfolio, they still don't even have the answer key worked out correctly.
Yeah, we've had what, 8 corrections?
Yeah, I mean, I had one yesterday, I had to take the teacher, they're having to go back and pull all that back out to see maybe the kids did pass certain passages. So it's not a smooth operation.
Okay, we covered the trips, Miss Moody, the child nutrition meal price rates.
Before we, it's not, I guess you explained to them that would take if they approve it. I don't know if it had to be by a vote, a signature.
It will be on the agenda for a motion.
Okay. That's all I have.
That's all right.
Okay, this is a memo from USDA that I got back in November, and if you look under annual review of paid lunch prices, that first paragraph there pretty much sums it up. It says that we have to review our paid lunch price every year and make sure that we're in compliance. And what that means is if our paid lunch price plus what our reimbursement is from the government is less than what we get for a free lunch, then we either have to increase our price or kick it in from other funds. Which I guess that's local, isn't it?
It would be,
Yeah,
yes.
it would be. So anyway, they send you a paid lunch every week to the last pay. And after you do the math, it says that our average lunch price for paid are to be $2.42. And what I had wrote for your approval was I took this, and our elementary price is $2.20 right now, and our high school price is $2.45. And this would make a 20-cent increase just at the elementary level. So what I done is divided it and put 10 cents on high school and 10 cents on elementary. And that would give us, if we average those two together, it gives us a 2.42
or 2.45 per hour increase on average, so we get it that way. And then, the new breakfast requirements go into effect next year, and that requires that we offer each student in the school system a cup of fruit at breakfast. And right now, we're charging $1, and I don't see how we can do that meal for $1. There's no way. So, me and Lester talked about it, and we thought that we should raise our breakfast price to $1. We're, even at $1.25, we're not making anything, so.
We've not raised breakfast in
Years, yeah, so, that's it.
So the breakfast meal would be,
$1.25.
I mean,
All the way
consistent
through
of,
school, all the way, and then high school would be $2.55, and elementary would be $2.30.
I guess my question is what, I've not been to the lunch and breakfast, what would a breakfast meal consist of?
Well, we normally, actually, we don't have to, we could just put biscuit out there, and if it's 2 grains, that could be their entree, but we normally put, chicken or sausage or something, and they call that an other, is what they call that, and that doesn't really fit to the meal requirement. But we have, each student could take the entree, they can take up to 5 items. They must have 3, but they can take up to 5. And it's the entree, milk, and up to a cup of fruit that they can take. So,
You made a question? Thank you. The calendar changes.
Given our winter weather, and we have had a calendar that, I'm sure you're very aware of, has been very different than it has been. Actually, we've probably missed more days this year than we have in the last, certainly probably since I've been in central office. Our state statute requires that we either have a 185-day calendar or 1,025 hours, which, when you do the math, can be achieved in less than the 185 days. Our calendar had 180 days originally. That's 1,085 hours. My request to you will be in line with what many of our counterparts across the state and like Ms. Walsh has mentioned, even down Raleigh Way, now are asking their boards is that we consider meeting the 1,025 hours because we have missed 13 days. And we've had several early dismissals and late starts. So I will discuss with you in closed session the plan that I have to do that. But just so that you know, we have, the plan does include some Saturdays that we've already been, extending the school year by 1 day, and then it will include some additional time daily until we meet our 1,025 instructional hours.
So that's also an approval item when we come back. Ms. Davis, board policies.
All right. The second reading policies are listed on the attachment on the agenda. And if you reviewed those in your February meeting, if you have any questions, and then they would be on your calendar for approval today. And then the first reading policies, I placed them on your desk. The first one is prohibition against discrimination, harassment, and bullying. This policy fulfills federal and state guidelines. And it applies to students and employees, plus it applies to independent contractors and visitors. So the reason for the changes in policy 1710 is to stress that if you have any, you've got to really eyeball your independent contractors and visitors and your volunteers. They can't, the school could be liable if any of those folks engaged in any sort of harassment and bullying. The application is in school buildings, school activity, buses, bus stops, school-sponsored activity, anywhere where school personnel is in authority. Also, this, the General Assembly added sexual violence to harassment and bullying. It had not been clarified before that acts of sexual violence are covered under this. And
Ms. Davis, can I ask a question? Number 6, at any time or place when the behavior has a direct and immediate effect on maintaining order and discipline in the schools, does this have any reference to social media? Because we have a lot of problems sometimes that start on Facebook or whatever. And I know this has been hashed in a lot of other places.
6 addresses race, color, national origin, sex, or disability. And when you look at your reach, remember we talked about, you know, how far the school can reach into homes and
Right.
people's iPads and computers. It's an attempt that is, if it's disruptive to the school, and you've got some supporting case law on that, if it comes back into the school.
Okay.
And, you know, when we look at those court cases, we look at circuits, and the circuits have been all over the page about it. But it's an attempt to show that if it's disruptive to the school, even if it's at the play, you know, the park, and it comes back and directly affects the teacher or another student. So those would be the major changes on that policy. Then 3110, the new mandate in 3110 was the session law from 2013, from the General Assembly, is the third paragraph on page 1. The superintendent shall periodically consult with local industry employers and the local workforce development board to identify industry certification and credentials, which would affect what, you know, what you offer in the school and could best meet the workforce needs. The superintendent shall consider this information in planning the educational program. So it's a new requirement in the 2013 session to meet with industry and consider it in planning your curriculum. 6430, purchasing requirements, and probably this is a good one for Onley, but basically 6430, when you read it, there are lots and lots of editorial changes in it. They changed words like to what they thought would clarify the legislation a little better. But when you have expenditures equal to or more than 90,000, you know, when you have competitive bidding and when you can do informed bidding, there are all these figures. And what does it mean 90 or does it mean 89? So that's what this policy has done. So there are lots and lots of editorial changes. And then basically a really big one involved on page 1 is to do your e-verify on whether you have any contractors or subcontractors working in the school who are aliens, immigration issues, farmers. So as you look through there, there are lots of editorial changes, but it's just clarifying figures for the type of bidding requirements you have to do. 7100, recruitment and selection of personnel. The changes there is that if you'll go to criminal history, see,
the General Assembly came out and called everybody that you need to notify your assistant superintendent of human resources. We don't really have, well, is Rex assistant superintendent, or is he assistant superintendent of human resources and personnel?
He is, or under his duties, he also has personnel.
Okay, resources. My recommendation, you're authorized to drop and put down who really is. If you just say assistant superintendent, you're okay. Because it's not, his only duties are not just of human resources. So my recommendation would be assistant superintendent. Or the law says now, or any person you designate for the criminal history checks. The new state law, which came out of the General Assembly in 2013, is just to be really careful when you do your criminal history checks and you obtain information on criminal conduct. It really should just pertain to the final candidate. They're trying to narrow when people apply for applications to public bodies, that you obtain all this information that's particularly criminal. Then on page 2 of the policy, there's a new 8th Circuit case, and the General Assembly has adopted those factors when considering a final candidate who may have some criminal conduct in their history. So basically, the changes in 7100 are about criminal conduct. 7240, drug-free and alcohol-free workplace. Lots of editorial changes. C is, A. On prohibited activities, the law just clarifies, it's not just drugs that are considered illegal substances. It covers even prescription drugs if the employee is abusing prescription drugs. Then C is new, reasonable suspicion search. If there's reasonable suspicion and you can articulate it, then you can approach your employee about the employee's conduct. Now, one of the things, if you'll go to the last sentence on C, your North Carolina School Board Association recommended that the observations must be made by a trained supervisor. Just recommended, and then when I looked into getting that clarified, not that everyone is trained in the school system, but that probably in each school you should have someone trained that knows what reasonable suspicion is. And we can work on that. It does not require that your observer be trained. If you have a kindergarten teacher observing.
Well, I mean, are you, in addition to a school resource officer?
Is that a specific kind of training, or is it
It
something
is
our
for-
people already have?
We would have the general training.
For reasonable suspicion. So my recommendation is you delete the last sentence, because you have your SRO program. You don't need a trained supervisor if you have in place your SROs who have at least trained someone else in the school system, because your SROs can't be in all 3 schools. You've got 2 SROs. So my recommendation would be to delete that last sentence because of your SRO program and the ability for them to train. Okay, so that would conclude 7240. Then the 9020 facility design, the major change there is that plans for science facilities in the middle and high schools must be approved by the State Board of Education. You just can't go out, you're going to construct a school and your architect designs the size and specs, that any science facility has to be approved by the State Board of Education. So you just have another step in that process. before you approve the architectural plans. So, that's the change in employment. Okay, that concludes the comments.
Anybody have questions? Okay, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
Pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 and 143-318-11E, I move that the Graham County Board of Education go into closed session to receive advice from M.L. Davis, attorney for the Graham County Board of Education, which advice comes within the purview of the attorney-client privilege. The advice will be general legal advice about legal issues or legal matters. Pursuant to the provisions of North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11C, I move that the Graham County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of considering personnel and property matters as defined in and allowed by North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A6 and North Carolina General Statute 115C 321.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?